So, I'm going to treat this as a serious question for once, Summon the Angels. Your question was, why is it considered, why is wanting to protect your race and culture considered unacceptable? Usually when you get this kind of question, it is from a right-wing troll, from some troublemaker. For once I will treat this because you've made a good impression. You were polite and your behavior wasn't outright trollish. So I see the possibility that you're actually somebody who wants to learn, who is genuinely ignorant about this topic and wants to learn. And if that is the case, more power to you. So why is it considered unacceptable? The reason people will usually not get into a discussion about this with you is that it is a loaded question. It is a loaded question in the same way as the classic, so did you stop beating your wife? Is, the question itself is not innocent. It makes assumptions, and these assumptions are actually even more malicious than in the case of the wife beater question. When you answer the question, you basically have the choice to walk into the trap the question lays out for you, or to basically start meta-communicating, to question the questioner, or to protest against the questioner, against the assumptions he is making with the question, which can be read as defensiveness and puts the person answering the question again into a bad spot, in the spot of defense. So what are the assumptions this question makes? For example, it makes the assumption that something like race does exist at all. In the case of humans, does race exist? If you start to question the person asking this question, usually it becomes very clear, very quickly, that they do not know what they are talking about. That they do not know what the term race with regards to humans means, and usually, if they have any idea at all, usually it is something that they cobbled up from some right-wing side. So that is that. Then there's the assumption that something like a race needs protecting at all, or that there's or that a culture needs protecting, or something like that. And which culture needs protecting, and which race needs protecting, and why? Usually there's a lot of assumptions and not very innocent ones. And then there's of course the question, the assumption that it needs protection against something or someone, and who is that? There's an unspoken assumption that there are certain people or certain ideas that the race or the culture needs protection from, and like in 99.99 of all cases, the people asking the question have a very definite idea of whom they want to be protected from, whom they want their race and their culture to be protected from. You know, it usually means to exclude certain minorities from your country, to pass legislation to be able to spy on them, to curtail their movements, their freedom of assembly, their freedom of speech, to minimize their voting rights, stuff like that. So it's usually pretty nasty stuff, and it works the same in all countries. I mean, I suppose you're British. We have the same stuff in Germany. The Hungarians have the same stuff. The Americans, Australia, Canada, and all the other countries too. I mean, ISIS is like the most extreme version of that in the Middle East, in Syria and the Levant. Yeah, that's basically all that's to it. That's the reason you will have difficulty finding anybody who wants to discuss this stuff with you, because it's pretty nasty. It almost always means is an entryway for an argument to reduce people's rights, curtail certain people's rights, and that's why it's unacceptable.